probably one of the toughest decisions I've ever made in my life was saying no to that. Right. But now I would live 1,000 miles away from my kids, and I'm still not going to be able to afford to take care of them, especially if I've got to fly back and forth, et cetera. And as a coach, you really don't have time to do that anyway. So I didn't know how I could live up to my responsibility as a father. So I gave up coaching, and I had always had that interest in business. Yeah. And Merrill Lynch offered me a job in the institutional MBA training program. There were 26 of us in that program, 25 MBAs, and 1 football coach. And I think everybody at Merrill Lynch absolutely assumed that this football guy is never going to make this. And, but that turned out not to be the case. And I had a great run for 17 years at Merrill. And through the 90s, remember we had the dot-com boom? Well, at the end of the 90s, we had the dot-com bubble burst. Yeah. And that had a tremendously horrible impact on the technology sector as well as online brokerage. And that very much affected Ameritrade. And Ameritrade had some problems. They did a national search, and they offered me that job. Now, in 1995, I remarried and had 2 stepsons. So in the spring of 2001, I loaded up the truck and moved the family from New York City to Omaha. And I know I was a little long-winded, Roger, and I apologize for that, but that's the whole stinking story of my entire life. So thank you all very much for this.
That is a remarkable story by any measure.
I had to have covered at least 12 of your questions.
There's nothing else to say. We're going to show pictures of the children in just a moment. Well, rolling the tape back just for a minute, because there's so many pieces of that you want to dive into. One, we're all glad that you didn't go in the fruit business. Number 2, I'm really curious how I realize you made an economic decision not to continue coaching, not to go to Miami. But what was it that Merrill saw in a coach, in this guy who didn't quite fit in with the other MBAs? And then you went into Merrill. How did you break through? Because I know you wound up being one of the most successful rookies in that team's history. I'm looking for the secret sauce. What did they see in you, and what happened when you stepped into Merrill? Because you were sort of an alien in that rookie class.
You know, I think I'll answer the first part of your question first, but I think it's very interesting because there's actually a parataxis between what was happening to me then when I was leaving coaching to go to business that's similar to what's happening to me now as I think about going back to coaching. But it didn't happen from the business part of Merrill Lynch, it happened from the human resource part of Merrill Lynch. Back then, Merrill and firms like Merrill, Goldman Sachs, et cetera, aggressively recruited what they considered to be the top MBAs from the top MBA programs around the country. And when I would interview with the human resource group or the recruiting people, that's what they did. They went after the top MBAs from the top MBA programs. I didn't quite fit that mold. I didn't have the pedigree. I didn't go to the boarding schools that a lot of other people did. And it was interesting. At Merrill Lynch, one of the people that interviewed me was a guy by the name of Mike Quinn that ran one of the businesses. And I think what Mike saw wasn't that I fit the description that the HR people were going after, but he just saw I had a passion for it. I think he felt that I had the ability to be able to fit maybe in an environment that I hadn't been in before. But when he thought about my past, he said, the guy's already gone through a divorce. He's already had a career under his belt. Look where he grew up. There's a lot of pressure on him as a coach. I think he'll handle himself well under pressure. And what he told me was, you don't have the academic background that we're looking for, and you may not have the polish. You think my New York accent is bad now? You should have heard it back then. And you don't quite have the polish maybe that we're looking for. But we think you have the skill sets that would make you effective here. And that's actually how I got that job. Yeah. And I'm not sure, had I not met with him, I would have gotten that job offer from Merrill Lynch, because I didn't fit quite the mold. Now, when I got there, I really was behind the MBAs. I mean, I didn't know how to spell the word bond. I didn't know what a stock was. But I had a lot at stake. I mean, I'm starting a second career. I've already moved down from New Hampshire. I've got 4 children and an ex-wife I've got to support. So I worked very, very hard at this. And I think what I probably did maybe, there were 2 things I might have done a little bit better than some of the others in the class. And the first was I listened really, really well. I paid attention. And I think I kind of understood what's the role of Merrill Lynch with regards to the clients, what's the role of the clients, how can I make the client better at their job, how can I make a little bit of a contribution to Merrill Lynch. And the other thing, I think there is a lot of pressure on Wall Street, as all of you face in your respective business worlds, as people see in the coaching profession. I think I was much better prepared. I was more mature for what I've gone through, and probably I was more of a leader than the typical MBA was, because I've already kind of been there, done that. Not on Wall Street maybe, but therefore I felt I probably knew how to handle myself better under stress than what a lot of them did, and I think that eventually very much differentiated me from the rest of the crowd.
When you were at Merrill, you were selling. I mean, you were really a sales executive, right? What did your coaching background help you in that regard? Was it building relationships, breaking through, grit? You know, you're a New Yorker, so am I. I mean, you know, what was it that you got rid of politeness quickly and you went for the sale? Because I'm going back to what he saw in you, which I think we all see in you. There's an energy about you that's genuinely magnetic. How did you break through at Merrill and become such a top salesperson? How'd you prove him right?
Well, again, in the coaching world, you need to know certainly how to relate to people.
Right.
So you need to understand how they feel, how they think, what makes them tick. How can you unite and excite a larger organization?
Right.
One of the things you do is know what's important to them. What is it about them that you can help them further develop in their own life?
Right.
You become a good listener. And in the sales world, I think it's very much the same qualities. The people that we covered on Wall Street. Remember, I began as an institutional bond salesman. So I only covered major institutions where everybody was a financial professional and managed money for a living. And what I worked hard at was trying to learn their job. And I spent so much time thinking about their job, that I actually thought at some point in time maybe I could do their job for them. So if I really understood that, and I understood of all the different strengths that Merrill Lynch brought to the table, what are the strengths and the products or the skill sets or the resources that Merrill Lynch has that are going to make this particular client, Cigna Insurance Company, T. Rowe Price, a little bit better at what they do. And I worked very, very, very hard at that. And I also covered fewer clients than what others did. And early on in our career, I was one of the guys that led sales teams, the organization of sales teams. Yeah. So in the financial service world, rather than be a corporate specialist or by one person do all those things, you'd have the corporate bond specialist, the mortgage specialist, the money market specialist, et cetera, and they'd start to cover fewer clients, but I think with far greater expertise, and we would get far more of those clients' business. So at the end of the day, I knew I represented Merrill Lynch, but I was doing a good job with Merrill by never putting Merrill at risk and helping the clients actually do their job better. And that served me well as a producer.